Are you solving the problem that's visible, or are you solving the problem that's actually holding the business back? Today's episode is inspired by the conversations that I have been having lately inside the certification program on our coaching calls. And I think it's something that every integrator, OBM, project manager, and behind the scenes leader experiences at some point in their journey. And that is realizing that not every problem is your problem to solve. Now, when you're first stepping into a strategic role, it's really easy to believe that your value comes from fixing things, right? You walk into a business and you immediately see all the opportunities. The messy Google Drive, the overflowing inbox, the disconnected systems, the scattered processes, the lack of organization, and your brain immediately starts building a list of improvements. I know mine does. You can see exactly how things could be better. But over time, I've learned something really important. Just because you can solve a problem doesn't mean that's the problem that needs solving right now. And understanding that distinction is what helps you move from being a helper to becoming a true strategic partner. Now, one of the biggest traps that I can see integrators fall into is, again, trying to solve everything at once. We want to naturally organize every folder, clean up every workflow, fix every system, and implement the best practice. While all of those things may be valuable eventually, they may not be the thing that creates the biggest impact right now. And sometimes we're solving the problem we can see instead of the problem that's actually keeping the business stuck. And those are often two very different things. Now, the visionary typically comes to us when they're feeling overwhelmed. And our instinct is to immediately start cleaning things up. But overwhelm is rarely caused by a messy Google Drive. It's usually caused by lack of clarity, a lack of priorities, a lack of decision-making, a lack of focus. And if we spent all of our energy organizing folders while the visionary is still unclear on where they're going, we're solving the wrong problem. So why do visionaries stay stuck? Because one thing that came up recently in a coaching conversation was the reality that many business owners already know what needs to change. The challenge isn't information. The challenge is implementation. They know they need boundaries. They know they need better systems. They know they need better communication. They know they need to stop doing everything themselves. But knowing and doing are not the same thing. And as strategic partners, we sometimes forget that change itself can feel overwhelming. We hand someone a beautifully organized plan. We create a clear roadmap. We simplify everything. And then they don't follow it. Not because it's a bad plan, not because they don't trust us, but because change requires capacity. And sometimes people aren't actually ready for the amount of change they say they want. And that's an important lesson because it means our role isn't simply creating solutions. It's helping people implement solutions at a pace they can actually sustain. Now, the longer that I've done this work, the less impressed I am by complexity, and the more I am impressed by simplicity. I think a lot of business owners believe success requires more. More systems, more funnels, more automations, more offers, more software, more strategy. But often what they actually need is less. Less noise, less confusion, less decision fatigue, especially for the moms out there, less complexity. The best solutions are often surprisingly simple. Not because they're easy, but because they're clear. And clarity creates momentum. When someone is overwhelmed, they don't need 10 next steps. They need one. When they're stuck, they don't need another course. They need a decision. When they're spinning, they don't need more information. They need direction. And that's where strategic leadership becomes so valuable. Now, the clients who do move the fastest, let's talk about them. Because one thing I have noticed over the years is that the clients who get the best results are rarely the ones with the best systems. They're the ones willing to take action. They make decisions, they implement, they test things, they gather data, and then they adjust. They don't sit around simply trying to create the perfect plan before moving forward. They move, and then they improve. Momentum creates clarity far faster than our overthinking ever will. And that's true whether you're building a business, refining an offer, launching a funnel, or creating a client experience. You learn by doing, not by endlessly planning. But don't get me wrong, I love my planning framework. So when most people start out as a virtual assistant or that support person, they often focus on the tasks, right? But then they usually move into systems. That's kind of the next step. Then they move into strategy because they've been in the world long enough to see what works, what doesn't. But eventually the highest level isn't systems or strategy. It's that leadership. And that's what this podcast is all about, you guys. It's leadership. Leadership means understanding what actually matters. Leadership means helping people prioritize. Leadership means knowing when to simplify. Leadership means helping someone focused on the next best step instead of the next 20. And leadership means recognizing that your job isn't to prove how much that you know. It's to help someone move forward. Sometimes that means building something. Sometimes that means organizing something. Sometimes that means doing absolutely nothing except helping them make a decision. And often, that's the most valuable thing we can provide. So if you're a behind-the-scenes leader, I want to leave you with this question. Are you solving the problem that's visible, or are you solving the problem that's actually holding the business back? Because they're not always the same thing. The businesses that create momentum aren't the ones with perfect systems. They're the ones with clarity. They're the ones making aligned decisions, and they're the ones taking action. And as integrators, our role is to help create that clarity. Not by solving every problem, but by solving the right one. So if you've been listening to this episode and thinking, I know I'm capable of more than just checking off a task list, then the certification program may be exactly what you're looking for. Inside the certification, I teach behind-the-scenes leaders how to move beyond execution and step into that strategic partnership. You'll learn how to identify what actually moves a business forward, lead with confidence, and support visionary business owners at a higher level. Because your value, again, isn't doing more things. Your value is helping clients gain clarity, make decisions, and create that momentum. You can learn more about the certification by going to mollymaris.com/certification, or you can find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Quiet Leaders Podcast.